Sounds, camera, action with inspiring leaders. Today, we are joined by Abdulrahman Afia, founder of Afia Partners, whose journey is a powerful story of resilience and growth. In this episode, we explore the comeback mindset, how to rebuild life and career after failure. Thank you so much for joining us today.
I'm delighted to be here. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming.
To start with, just walk us through your journey to becoming a powerful leadership expert and founder of Afia Partners.
Well, you're very kind to refer to me as a leadership expert, but I would never refer to myself as an expert in leadership. But if I'm honest, it's something that I wanted to be known for. That journey started in 2016 when I decided to make the move away from academia. I was really involved in higher education and spent time working in primary schools, secondary schools. I made a decision that I wanted to move into the business world and bring my passion for leadership and coaching and training, which had really been a side hustle, and make that my main hustle. My plan was that people would refer to me and see me as an expert in leadership, but I'd never call myself, obviously, an expert in anything. But over the years, I suppose I've had and been exposed to so many different experiences and met so many wonderful people along the way and made so many mistakes that now I'm in a position where I can really help other people to benefit and learn, I suppose, from a lot of what I've gone through.
Amazing.
Yeah.
And what was the turning point that changed your life?
The turning point that changed my life, well, that would have to be when I was 18 years old. Growing up, I come from a wonderful family. I was very privileged growing up. I had everything that anybody could want, money, friends, everything. And interestingly, my parents sent me to Mensa when I was about 9 or 10 years old. And Mensa is a little controversial, right? But essentially, they assess your level of IQ. It's a bit controversial, but anyway, they came out of the assessment, they finished it, and they came and told my mum and dad, they said, "We've got great news. Your son tested at genius level. He's a genius."
Wow.
And obviously my parents were just over the moon, right? You've got children, you know, anyone's going to tell you we've assessed him and he's a genius. And you have geniuses for children anyway. But when somebody tells you from an assessment center like Mensa, they were over the moon. And I then went on to disappoint them year after year. I failed every exam I took, and I got expelled. I got kicked out of every school that I ever went to. And I was a very wild child growing up, because the plan was when I was 18 years old just to move into my father's business. And that was the path that was always there for me, to move into his business and I'd take over the business. So I didn't care about school, I didn't care about learning, I didn't care about anything. So I was always upsetting my mum and dad by the way that I was behaving when I was young, getting into all types of trouble. And then when I was 18 years old, I did something which really upset them, which is I converted to Islam. And when I converted to Islam, they weren't happy. And I understand now, looking back, why they weren't happy. They were just worried. They didn't know what was happening to their son. One night, when I was 18 years old, my father gave me a decision to make. And he said, "Tonight you're going to decide. Either you leave being a Muslim, forget about this new faith, and everything stays the same. But if you insist on keeping this new way of living as a Muslim," he said, "I can't have that in my house. And if you don't give it up, you're not my son, and you'll be cut off from the family." And I made the decision to keep to my new way of life and to continue to be a Muslim. And I found myself homeless when I was 18 years old. I went from having everything, never having a bad day in my life before 18. I didn't have a bad day in my life, to all of a sudden losing everything. And I think that absolutely was the turning point.
How you describe that feeling?
Well, it was the first time that I'd ever experienced crisis in my life. I'd never known a bad day. And all of a sudden, I was alone. And I had nobody, no human being was coming to save me. No one was going to help me. And I found myself in a position I'd never been in. And that feeling will, I guess, do one of two things. When you feel that you have nothing, you either crumble or you go the other way. Sure. And I went the other way. And I realized that there was nothing that I could do except move forward, which is what I did. I found myself shortly after that doing jobs that I never expected I would do. I was working. I worked as a taxi driver. I worked in a supermarket, stacking the shelves. I worked as a cleaner. I remember cleaning toilets in hotels. I was doing that for quite a while, and I enjoyed it. I had no problem with that. I would every day, every morning, I go in, I clean the toilets in these different hotels, and I get paid for it. This was, the choice that I made. What other choice did I have? And I think that those lessons that I learnt at that time, even though they were painful, even though they were difficult, absolutely allowed me to learn the importance of being resilient and the importance of not giving up. And all throughout my life, I've never given up. No matter how many doors were slammed in my face, and I've had so many doors slammed in my face, I never once let that stop me. I think I learned, somebody told me a saying years ago, it's to do with sales, if you're trying to get sales, but I apply it to life as well. He said, when you're trying to get sales, sometimes people will close the door in your face. If you can't get through the door, you go through a window. And that's been the way that I think I've lived my life, that often the door seems closed, right, you find another way. But one way or another, you have to keep moving forward, because if you don't, it's over.
Did any point of time you regret your decision?
No, there wasn't a minute, a second that I ever regretted my decision. And the fortunate thing is now, although the relationship with my mother and my father and my sister was really bad for many, many years, it's now amazing. I'm so close with my mother and my father. We're very, very close. We spend a lot of time talking together, being together. They're always visiting us in Dubai. And I don't regret anything. I regret mistakes that I made along the way and how I communicated my decision to them, how I was very emotional at first, how I couldn't really explain a lot of what was behind me choosing this new way of life. Looking back, I could have done things better. But the decision, no, I have no regrets.
You have used a lot of this term failure. How do you define failure?
How do you
define
failure? That's a really good question. Nobody's ever asked me that question before. Well done. Yeah, usually I've always got something to say, but that's a good one. How do you define failure? In its most basic, primitive sense, it's attempting something and not succeeding in that. However, to attempt something and to not succeed, it's a failure. But the biggest failure is if you put a full stop, a period, at the end of that. So I tried it and it didn't work. Full stop. Okay. No, I tried it. It didn't work. So then I tried this. That didn't work. Then I tried this. Now failure becomes success. So failure might be a little easy to define. It's, you try something and it didn't work. But the real failure is to let that stop you.
Yeah.
That's the biggest failure. I think the biggest failure, I speak to a lot of people all the time. I work with different CEOs, people, leading organizations. And over the years, I realized that there's a certain type of person which drives me mad. I think the type of person at the moment that drives me mad, I call them the key swallowers. The key swallowers are the people who have almost found themselves in a bad situation. For example, they're in prison. The example is they're in prison or in a prison cell. They have the key to open the door and to get themselves out. But instead of using the key, they just swallow the key and then they complain. The type of people that they have a problem for every solution you give them. So you say to them, look, they're facing this problem. Here's a solution. They find a problem with it. Okay, here's another solution. They find another problem with it. They have a problem for every solution. And for me, the most important quality for success in this life is to never give up, and to not let your failure in one thing stop you from finding a way still to move forward.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a lot of information.
Right.
It's really, I know how people, the ones who are listening this, they might have thought of giving up so many times.
Right.
And even myself.
Sure.
I think all of us,
Sure.
we think of giving up, but then when we watch videos,
right.
I watch so many videos,
right.
That's kind of inspiration.
Right. Yeah.
You learn so much that, yes, people don't do that. They keep on trying, even after, and you accepting that publicly.
Yeah.
That's a big thing.
I think, yeah. Almost every single success that I've had in my life has only come after some type of failure or being told. I remember the first job that I got in Saudi Arabia, the first job that I ever got working in Saudi Arabia, which started my whole career in academics and education, leadership. That first job that I applied for, when I sent the email to the person that was recruiting, it started like this, word for word. I still remember it. I said, "Dear Dr. John, let me start by telling you I don't have any of the qualifications you're looking for or any of the experience that you want the person to have." And I said to him, "You probably turned off your computer and walked away. But just in case you're still looking at the screen, let me tell you something about myself and why I think I'd be good for your organization." So I applied for my first proper job. I had no qualifications, no experience. And I told the guy, "Look, I know I don't have it, but let me tell you why I think I'd be good." I got the job. I went to Saudi Arabia. I went to go and get the visa to travel to Saudi Arabia. They said to me, "Where are your qualifications?" I said, "I don't have any." He said, "Well, you're not going to Saudi Arabia." I said, No, you've got to let me go. I've got a visa. I mean, I've got the job offer. I've got everything. And they only want me to teach. At that time, the position was for a conversation teacher, not a real English teacher, just somebody to practice conversation with students in a language center. I said, "It's just to speak English with people." He said, "Listen, no qualifications. You're not going to Saudi Arabia." This was in the Saudi embassy in 1999. And I was trying to find a way. And he pulled down the curtain and he walked away. He said, "You're not going to Saudi Arabia." I could have given up. I didn't. I went outside from the consulate. I went into the embassy and I just started walking up the stairs. I thought to myself, the most important person, he's got to be at the top. I didn't know what I was going to do. But I just kept walking up the stairs, until I found somebody. He said, "What are you doing?" I said, "Listen, I need your help." And I started explaining to him. And he said, "You've got no qualifications." I said, "I know, but one thing led to another. 2 weeks later, I had the visa. But I could have not done that, right? When he told me, "You're not going to Saudi Arabia," I could have given up. I didn't give up. Even though it seemed impossible, the impossible can become possible. And I've struck, part of my faith, of course, is that I put all my trust in God, all my trust in Allah, and, the most impossible situation, it's easy. It can become possible, but only if you do something.
Exactly.
And that's what I mean about constantly trying to find a way forward and never giving up.
You said you were about to hire for the conversation teachers. How you define communication? Why do you think communication is very important these days, and why people have differences or why they have so many issues, whether you talk about personal life or professional life? Is because they don't communicate?
Yeah, I think that people are struggling more than ever before in communicating effectively. So we all communicate, but to communicate effectively, then that is a skill. But the good news is, like all skills, it can be learnt. But all too often, probably the single biggest factor for misunderstandings at work comes down to, of course, communication. I mean, that's why you look at emails. Until today, the biggest reason for misunderstandings in the office place, it comes down to emails. Because why?
True.
Communication is, as you know, yes, partly the words that we say, but only a small part. Most of the research shows that most of our message when we communicate something is by our tone of voice or by our body language. But without tone of voice, without body language, so just an email, so open to misunderstandings. And then what about different cultures, different backgrounds, different personalities? So one of the biggest challenges when I work with leaders is helping them to understand, A, how to communicate with impact. How can you make sure that when you communicate as a leader, that your words really hit people and they stick with people? Because we all know there are times in our lives, I'm sure there are times in your life, where somebody said something to you. It could have been your grandmother, it could have been a manager. Those words, they really hit you. They really stuck with you, And that's what we want as people in leadership positions. We want that when we communicate, it has an impact on people. So the biggest challenge is how to communicate with impact, but also how to make sure that you're really making sure that everybody else around you feels safe communicating. All too often, CEOs and people in leadership positions will be the first person to speak, and they shut down any. You might be in a meeting, right? You want to say something, but then the line manager says X, Y, and Z. You're not going to disagree with them most of the time. You're going to keep quiet. Nobody wants to be on the wrong side of their boss or their manager. It's a real skill and a challenge for leaders to be able to make sure that people feel comfortable speaking.
Exactly.
You know, and so yeah, communication, I think more than ever before is incredibly important. Yeah.
And it's all about communicate to listen. It's not
Right.
about like people just, they don't listen to you what you're trying to say.
It's very true. Very true.
When we communicating, we need to listen and understand the
Yes.
viewpoint, at what position that person is saying.
Yeah,
It might be
absolutely.
emotionally not strong.
Right.
It might be something happened at their workplace. Or like wherever they're going to meeting a friend also, even
Yeah.
like for 5 minutes.
Sure.
It's like just communicate to listen to the other person.
Yeah.
That's so important. So let's talk
agree.
about coaching. You used the word coaching. So when you give coaching to leaders in the schools, what kind of struggles you face?
I'm very fortunate that the people that I work with are people that I want to work with. Don't get me wrong, for many years I had to work with whoever I could find work with and help. Now I'm at a point in my life where I'm very careful about who I work with, and the people that I work with, I love to work with them and they love to work with me. So I don't face challenges, but maybe if there's one common thread amongst the people that I work with, it's helping them to constantly keep a growth mindset in everything that they're doing. So a lot of the people I work with, they're extremely experienced. I mean, they're good leaders. They know what they're doing. They really know what they're doing. And that's why they'll spot somebody who doesn't know what they're doing a mile away. So the people I work with, they're really high level. They're really competent. But sometimes when we become high level and we become so good at something, we can lose that edge for having that growth mindset, for keeping a desire to always learn something new. You know, as some of us now are getting a little older, and some of us I'm 52, but I work with people in their 60s. Nothing has changed, more for people in the last 2 years since obviously AI is at the forefront of everything now. So helping leaders to understand and embrace change like never before, that can be a challenge. But yeah, I am very fortunate that the people I work with, I love, and I think they love us too.
What is the difference between a good leader and an average leader?
Oh, a good leader and an average leader. I think the difference between a good leader and an average leader. Well, you didn't say a bad leader, so they're average. They're doing a good enough job. I think you could compare it to the difference between a company that has loyal customers and a company that has satisfied customers. In today's business world, no company should be satisfied with having satisfied customers. So, for example, if you have a school or any business and the parents are satisfied, they're okay, they're happy. That's not enough. Because the moment a competitor opens up that's basically providing the same service but a bit better, you're going to lose those people and they're going to go over there. What every organization needs to strive to do is create loyal customers. Loyal customers will accept when you make a mistake. Loyal customers won't just jump ship when a new operation sets up. No, loyal customers, they'll stay with you through thick or thin because they believe in you. And it's the same thing with leadership. A good leader, people will follow, because we're not talking about bad leaders. A good leader, an average leader, people will follow them. People will do what they need to do, and they'll go above and beyond. But loyalty takes their performance to the next level. I'll never forget, there's a great example that many people now, I suppose, showing my age, might not be familiar with, but there was a guy called Greg Dyke. And Greg Dyke was the commissioner for the BBC. And Greg Dyke lost his job. He was fired from the BBC many years ago. And when he left on his last day, if you go to YouTube and you type in Greg Dyke, last day at the BBC, you will see thousands of employees from the BBC coming out to show how much they love that guy. They loved him. The reason they loved him, he was a fantastic leader. Greg Dyke, then, I'm not so sure about today, but then was a fantastic leader. And a fantastic leader, an exceptional leader, has the loyalty of the people. And when you have loyalty, nothing compares to that. So I think that that's the difference between an average leader and a great leader is
Amazing.
you've got satisfied team members and then you have loyal team members. And you need loyal.
Amazing. So, when you talk about loyalty, we are talking about the schools, the teachers are struggling so much, especially so much pressure. It's come from all the sides.
Sure.
And management is changing. Retention rate, you know where it's going.
Right.
So, if you have to give some advice to the leaders, what they have to do different. So, the teachers, have a kind of, as you mentioned about loyalty, it's kind of to start building that trust, the relationship.
Okay.
What do you think the leaders need to do different to build that?
So for me, I've done a lot of things in my career, and I spent time working in schools. I spent time working in primary schools, secondary schools, and then higher education. It's been a few years since I've worked with teachers. It's been a few years, but a lot of the greatest lessons I learned were at that time. And I believe that what was true in my time is true today. The success of your organization depends on the success of your team. And your team's performance will be directly impacted by how safe your team feels, psychologically safe. Your team have to feel that they are able to contribute to discussions with candor, with openness, and that you're going to listen to what they have to say. You're going to appreciate what they have to say, even when you don't like it, even when it's not what you want to hear.
Sure.
People have to feel comfortable speaking, and people have to know that they will be listened to. There's so many bits of advice that you could give, but for me, I would highly recommend that if somebody wanted to make a big improvement in a short amount of time, make sure in your meetings with your team, you're letting people know, especially the quieter ones, I really want to hear from you. And then when people start contributing and they start, speaking openly, reward that. Reward it how? By letting people know this is exactly what I want to hear, even when it's against you, even when somebody, and especially when somebody disagrees with you. For example, look, I'm not sure I can agree with that, but I love that you brought it up. I love that you said that, because behavior that gets rewarded gets repeated. So you want to get the best out of people, you need to reward and let people know that's the behavior we want to see. Let everybody know. It's not about being quiet. I want people to talk, and show people that when they're speaking, you're listening to them. Somebody says something, say to them, let me just make sure I understood you correctly. What you're saying is A and B and C, is that right? These little, it goes back to communication, these little behaviors here, these habits, make people feel respected, make people feel safe. And in terms of managing conflict and solving conflict and having a winning team, you must make people, and this is supported by research, you must make people feel that they will be listened to and that they are encouraged to speak up. I remember two examples of my time at two different institutes. There was one time when I remember I was quite young in my career. I think it was in 2008. And I had a big meeting, and the chairman of the engineering college was there at a big government university in Saudi Arabia. And I'd prepared a lot of work about whatever topics was connected with assessment. And the chairman, who was an expert in engineering but knew nothing about English language teaching, but he was in charge of the English language department for some reason, he said, okay, this is what we're going to do when it comes to assessment this year. And I said, if I can just mention, the research, the latest research really suggests that we're better off doing this and this and this. And I'll never forget, he said to me, Abdurahman, when was that research from? I said, I think it was 2007. He said, okay, do you know the research from 2008? I said, no. He said, there's no research. I said, what? He said, there's no research, meaning I don't want to hear anything. That was the last time I ever contributed to any discussion, because it goes back to a saying that people that don't listen will find themselves surrounded by people with nothing to say.
Sure.
So if I was to go into a school or go into any management team and say, make a quick impact, get people, encouraging people to speak up, rewarding that behavior, and listening carefully to what they say.
And I believe when it's happening with leaders and teachers, that goes back in the classroom where teachers are doing the same thing.
Yeah.
Because that's what they're
Right.
picking from the
It's a
leaders,
good point.
you know?
Yeah.
So they are doing, okay, fine, you know, like I don't have time right now. I'm
Yeah.
going to continue teaching because I
Right.
need to finish the syllabus.
Yeah.
But we need to understand that behavior is coming from
Yes.
leadership,
Yeah.
team, you know? So it's like everyone needs to learn so much, especially now.
Yeah.
When parents are so aware, students are so aware.
Yeah.
And sometimes I should say, like when I'm teaching, they have more knowledge than me.
Wow.
You know, and as we say,
That's crazy.
internet, of course, there would be a lot of positive and negative thing, and we can debate about it when we
Sure.
talk about internet and stuff. But at the same time, I think students are amazing. The technology giving them so much.
Right.
But how we are training them, that's so important.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, so let's talk about that. So when we look at education from your time, from your perspective, years back and now, how it has changed.
So I'm not sure that education has changed that much. And as I say, I have been out of the education field per se when it comes to academic education for a few years now. But I think what has changed is people's understanding of people. So more than ever before, the people seem to understand that you can no longer just give orders to teachers. You can no longer give orders to team members, and they're going to fulfill those orders in the way that you need them to. You know, more than ever before, there is a real need to lead people. Whether you're leading students, whether you're leading a team, you have to lead people. You manage things, right? You manage your assessment schedule, you manage timetables, you manage budgets, you manage reports, you manage all types of things. You manage those things. But people, you have to lead. Students, you have to lead. Whether you're a teacher or other than that. How do you do that? You lead by example.
Exactly.
So I always say, if you're not leading by example, you're really not leading at all. And that applies to every level of administration and every person in an organization. Everybody, whether you have the job title leader in your title or not, is irrelevant. Every organization needs people to behave as leaders. So I think that whilst education itself, of course, the technology is changing, has changed, but what's changed the most is the people and understanding that people are people, and you cannot manage people, you can only lead them.
True, 100%, and that's so important.
Yeah.
So you're quite passionate about mentoring, and you're quite passionate about coaching, right? And I've seen, like I spoke about this earlier about your videos. What do you do different about your mental stress to release your mental stress in your personal life? Because you give so many good conversation, you talk about, you know, where people want to listen to you.
Right.
You're an inspiration for so many out there.
That's nice to hear.
So please tell us what you do different in your personal life to manage your stress.
Well, I think there was a time in my life where I wasn't managing my stress well. So, you know, I was focused on everything else. I was focused on building the business. I was focused on the family. I was focused on everything, but I let myself go to the point that when I arrived in Dubai 5 years ago, I was really out of shape. You know, I was in really bad physical shape. So I was 135 kgs, 60% body fat. I had to sleep with a sleep apnea machine. My stress levels were the highest that they could probably be without me actually falling over and having a heart attack. It was bad. It was really bad because I'd focused on everything except myself. When I got to Dubai, for a number of reasons, I decided to turn that around. And how does that translate to today? Well, I manage my stress by taking care of myself in the gym, eating well, sleeping well, and really working out a lot, you know? And I just find that is I can be having a really stressful day, I'll go to the gym, I'll feel a million times better. And then, of course, above all of that, I have my 5 prayers during the day. So my 5 prayers during the day, you know, right from the time when I accepted Islam at 18, up until the time my father told me, no matter what was happening in my life, no matter how many difficult situations I had, the one thing that I never let go of was my prayers. And my prayers keep me grounded. No matter how, you can't be angry and pray. Like those two things just can't happen. You can be having the worst possible day, but once I say Allahu Akbar and I stand in prayer, I know that at that moment, I have all the food that I need. I have all the health that I need. I have all the money that I need. And I have peace and security because I'm able to pray in peace. So a combination, I think, of taking care of the spiritual side of things and then the physical side of things in the gym. Those two things together allow me to be fairly calm most of the time. I mean, I can say my wife's here, my daughter's here, so if I was lying, they'd probably call me out on it. But I think I'm pretty calm, right? What you see, what you see is what you get with me. I'm pretty much the same. What you see on social media, well, you're meeting me today, right? I'm basically what you see is what you get. It's not an act.
I'm quite curious to know, how old were you when you moved to UAE, if you don't mind telling?
When I moved to UAE, that must have been 47. When I moved to Saudi Arabia the first time, so to give you the timeline, I got married, I converted to Islam when I was 18. I got married when I was 19 to my amazing wife, Khadija, who I attribute everything that I have is attributed to her, because she's the complete opposite of me. Wow. She's very analytical, very precise. She doesn't make, impulsive decisions. I'm the complete opposite. And at the time in my life when I had nothing, she married me. Well, we married. She agreed to marry me, and she essentially took care of me and helped me to get my life together. So converted to Islam when I was 18, became homeless, married when I was 19, had my first child when I was 21.
Wow.
Yeah. So, and now today, my oldest son, Abdullah, is 31. I've got 3 grandchildren, 4 children, 3 grandchildren. And I think that, I'm just very, very fortunate to be able to stay calm. And when I moved to Saudi Arabia, to answer your question, I moved to Saudi Arabia to continue the timeline when I was 25. I stayed in Saudi Arabia for 21 years before moving to the UAE when I was 47. Yeah.
And why you decided to move to UAE?
Well, we had 21 amazing years in Saudi Arabia. I always tell people I had an amazing time in Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia was so good to me. I raised my family there, built a business there. We had 21 amazing years. But at the end of those 21 amazing years, all of my children were grown up. The country of Saudi Arabia has a very strong program for Saudiization, which I completely understand and makes total sense. And it means that a lot of the jobs that when I first moved to Saudi Arabia and I thought my children could get, they can no longer get. So the opportunities were really few and far between compared to how it used to be. And that's fine. As I said, you can either complain about something and just, there's nothing we can do, or do something about it. In this case, I decided to do something about it and look around and see what other places might be easier places to start a new chapter of my life. And once I visited the UAE, it was game over. It was obvious.
Now it's your home.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. You were talking about your wife. Can we talk more about it?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I've heard so many stories. I was talking to Mr. Toby the other day.
Okay.
So even he was saying he was quite young when he got married, and he was talking about how his wife helped him, the person he has become. So tell us more about it. What role she plays in your success?
Okay. So she doesn't like it. She always gets embarrassed when I talk about her, and whenever I mention her in interviews. But I have to mention her in interviews, and that's why in the introduction to my book I mentioned her as well, because she has been with me through thick and thin, through the highs, through the lows. When I had nothing, when I had nothing, when I had to go to a local convenience store and borrow or take credit from them to be able to buy 2 pieces of bread. I go home with 2 pieces of bread, an onion and a tomato, and I give it to Khadija, and she would make the most incredible food just from nothing. She would, and she'd never complain about it. She'd never moan about it. She'd never say to me, "This is unacceptable. I can't live like this." She'd always encourage me and help me to do better. So she's, after 32 years of being married, she has been there, as I say, at the lowest of lows and highest of highs, but she hasn't changed, She's just been consistent. So she is, without a doubt, any success that I have, anything that I do, alongside, of course, my mother as well, I have to say that it's Khadija, because she is, she is the perfect love of my life. she always gets embarrassed.
Beautiful.
She is everything.
You have shared some of your school days, your childhood experiences, right? So if you have to look back, what lessons you learned from your childhood experiences?
Well, what I've learned looking at my own experiences, not everything is as it seems. So I failed every exam. I told you I was terrible at school. All the teachers gave up on me. Nobody gave me any chance of succeeding. You know, my school report cards were the worst things you could ever see. And because I was terrible, I was misbehaving. Why was I misbehaving? I had undiagnosed ADD. I had dyspraxia. I had all types of learning difficulties that people didn't understand at that time. And you just got labeled as a naughty student. And I was a naughty student because I couldn't succeed academically. I would just try and get attention by playing up and, you know, acting up in class. But actually, if I'd had the right teacher, and that teacher was able to take me to the side and understand me and help me, I'm sure that things would have been very, very different. Now, of course, people understand about ADHD exactly. And they understand about all the various learning difficulties, but they didn't know it at that time. And I think, again, it always reminds me when you see somebody today who might appear to be doing badly, might appear to be struggling. In fact, maybe they just need a different type of help, and to never give up on people.
True. True. Building relationships in schools, when we talk about teachers and students, what do you think we are doing wrong these days?
That's a good question. Again, I don't want to be disingenuous, and there are people far more learned than me and can give a much more informed opinion than me about the current relationship between teachers and students. But in saying that, I think that at the heart of everything, when you're teaching, it's very easy to lose your passion. Most teachers that I ever worked with, they were very passionate at one point. A lot of us, with time, we lost that passion.
True.
Due to many reasons. School administration, pressure, especially around assessment time. I mean, that was a time where conflict was at its highest, pressure was at its highest. The relationships between people at work were always being challenged. If you lose your passion, which happens, it's important to understand that passion has different sources. Sometimes, for example, you might love what you do, and that's great. But then there's other times where you might stop loving what you do. You might be teaching a subject that you really are not that passionate about.
True.
And all of a sudden you've lost that passion. It's important to tap into other sources of passion. For example, I'm not passionate about what I do right now. Maybe I'm passionate about why I'm doing it. Because if I do this well, by the end of the school year, by the end of the academic year, I'm going to be in a good position perhaps to go for another position that I want, to be able to influence people, to give me another opportunity. So if you can't be passionate about what you're doing, maybe you can be passionate about why you're doing it. If you can't be passionate about why you're doing it, maybe you can be passionate about who you're doing it for.
True.
I'm doing it to take care of my family. I'm doing it to make sure that my family has everything they need. And if you can find a source of passion, it doesn't have to be what you're doing, but if you can somehow, no matter how tough it is, find something to be passionate about, that will help you get through the darkest of days and the most difficult of times. And that passion is what students need from teachers.
True.
And that's what we all need, from whether you're a student to a teacher, whether you're somebody in the team and your manager, your line manager, you need that person above you to have passion.
True. And what are you passionate about?
Leadership. I'm passionate about leadership. I'm passionate about helping people to be the best leaders that they can be, because I believe that everything rises and falls based on leadership. Every organization, every situation, every hotel, every restaurant, their success depends on leadership. Everything rises or falls based on leadership. And without leadership, you have nothing. So that's what I'm passionate about. I'm passionate about other things, but I could talk all day about that. Yeah.
Thank you so much for giving us so much information.
Welcome.
Before we move on to rapid fire, one last message for our listeners, for our audience.
A message. Okay, if I had a message for anybody, it would be to know that life is a journey. And in that journey of life, We can't see around corners. You might be on a road today, and that road looks bleak, and it looks tough, and it looks difficult, but you don't know what's around that next corner. You constantly need, if you want to succeed, to have a mindset that just says, I'm just going to keep on going. I'm just going to keep on moving forward. No matter how tough it is, I'm going to keep on moving forward. Because if you don't, then you lose everything. And this is what Sheikh Mohammed mentioned in his book, My Vision. So Sheikh Mohammed, the ruler of Dubai, of course, he mentioned in his book, My Vision, that every day when the sun rises, there's a lion and a gazelle. And for the lion to stay alive, it has to run faster than the slowest gazelle so it can eat. And every day when the sun rises, a gazelle, it has to run faster than the fastest lion. Otherwise, it's going to be eaten. It shows that no matter where you are in the jungle, whether you're the king of the jungle or you're not, for you to stay alive, for you to stay relevant, you have to keep running every single day. And I think that's what I've been doing. I've been running for quite a few years now.
Wow, that's a great message. So we're going to move on to rapid fire round. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
One word that defines leadership.
Influence.
What energizes you more, people or ideas?
That's a really tough one. People or ideas? I'm going to have to go with one, people.
Do you prefer structured planning or spontaneous action?
Spontaneous action.
One book that changed your thinking.
The Quran.
Your biggest strength.
Resilience.
A leader you admire.
Sheikh Mohammed.
Purpose or profit?
Purpose or profit? Purpose.
One habit you can't live without.
The gym.
Best advice you have ever received.
Oh God, so many. I've been given so much good advice over the years. Don't burn bridges. Yeah, my first mentor told me that, Khalil. Don't burn bridges.
Success means?
Success means never giving up and always finding a way.
Amazing. If you could go back in time, what would you tell your younger self?
I'd tell myself, be patient. Don't get upset with everybody. Don't flip like a pancake when you get angry. Control your emotions. Because when I was younger, my emotions used to control me 100%. So I would tell myself, chill, relax, be calm. It's all going to work out.
Amazing. One skill every leader should master.
Communication.
Great. Your favorite quote?
My favorite quote. Don't complain. Elevate your game.
Wow.
That's my quote, actually. I'm a bit, it sounds egotistical, but that was advice that I gave to a teacher once. And his teacher was really complaining about some things that were happening. I said to him, listen, you can carry on complaining all day long. Complaining is like a rocking chair. It gives you something to do, but it doesn't get you anywhere. And then I said to him, look, don't complain. Elevate your game. Make yourself better.
Great. What helps you reset and recharge?
Reflecting on what I've got. Reflecting on what I have right now.
Great. And the last one, what's next for Abdulrahman Afia?
Oh, wow. Okay. Well, there's two things on the immediate horizon. We've got an online workshop for the Unlikely Leader, which is my book that's obviously out. We've got an online workshop so people from all around the world can join that. That's in a couple of weeks. And then later in the year, we have a theatrical production of my life. So my life story is being made into a play that will be here it will be Dubai and Abu Dhabi and then Saudi and Kuwait and Qatar and Oman. Wow. So it's a big theatrical production. It's the story of my life.
Great. Thank you so much for joining us.
You're very, very welcome. I really enjoyed it.
Thank you.